Hello, hello. Do you hear us?
Hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. The floor or the big screen is yours. You have 20 minutes.
Oh,
Okay, hello. Good afternoon. I'm so glad to be here with you, even online in Narva. I'm Carlos Alonso. I'm an art curator. I've curated several times in Estonia, and the former director of a museum in Madrid, a museum of a painter called Ignacio Zuluaga, who was very famous during the period that we're going to talk about, and who was very successful in taking culture over borders because he made Spain very, very, very um, successful in terms of international projection. And I'm so honored to be joined in this lecture by my dear, dear friend, my dear colleague, my admired colleague, Nadia Hernández. She's also an art curator. She's an expert cultural manager. She's a great art historian. She's my go-to person for so many things. She's managing some of the most important collections in Southern Europe, and she has curated some of the most impressive shows, some of the most impressive shows that we've seen over the last years in Spain, at least. Among these impressive shows, she was able to research and develop a beautiful, beautiful narrative over this fascinating theme of Picasso in the Crosshairs. It's a marvelous exhibition, one of the most interesting exhibitions we've seen over the last few years in Spain. It's been in many places. It's been in Madrid, it's been in Barcelona, it's been in Paris. If you correct me, Nadia, it's been in Paris. And we are projecting it, and hopefully at some point it will be in Estonia. Why not in Narva? So that's the first thing that I wanted to say. Then we did a little presentation for you. I thought that we had a little bit more than 20 minutes. Do we have 20 minutes total? Okay, let's see how we
very quickly.
let's see how we manage. So I'm
You,
going to
you
talk.
have 30 minutes in total, but probably we will have some questions to ask.
Okay. Then we're going to be very, very quickly. I'm just going to introduce the topic or the period. The period is the Franco regime. Franco was the dictator that came out from a horrible civil war that happened in Spain, 1 million dead, and the following 6-7 years, another 500,000 dead through repression. That what we're seeing was one of the attempts of Franco to counteract the effect of the Guernica, with which we will talk afterwards, is the painting by Ignacio Zuluaga, The Burning of Toledo, which was a rebel attack on the Alcázar of Toledo, and it was set as an example of heroism of the national side and was sold abroad. Because Ignacio Zuluaga, as I say, was a very, very important artist outside of that. That civil war gave place to a dictatorship that lasted for almost 40 years. Okay, over those 40 years, not 40, 37, 36, Spain was under this dictatorship that had several phases concerning culture and concerning borders. The first phase was a very, very closed border, a situation in which there were a lot of exiles, among them Picasso, but also very important writers, Salvador Alberti, and very important intellectuals. That's one thing. And there was also an inner exile, people that were in Spain, but didn't dare to say anything against the Franco regime, so they were auto-exiled. Over the next few years, many of these intellectuals came back to Spain, and the regime became less idealistic or less about ideas and concept, and more technocrat. And so there was a certain cohabitation with these artists, because as long as you didn't hurt the regime directly or protest against the regime, there was a certain freedom to express whatever you wanted if it wasn't critic. So there wasn't an official art, as to say, and in this moment, a lot of very high quality avant-garde art in every way, architecture, sculpture, literature emerged, but it was still within our boundaries. And then there's a third period, the last period of the dictatorship, in which Spain opened and tried to break these borders that we're talking about through culture and project another image. So in the next slide, there you go. We have this attempt. Manuel Fraga Iribarne, he became the Minister of Tourism of Spain, and he decided that we were going to serve tourism and we were going to sell our cultural tourism and not only our light tourism. What did we do? We started selling the idea of Spain through Iberia, which was the airline company, greatly connected with Latin America, selling all of our topics and prototypical Spain, and also through actions such as the famous Eurovision Festival '66, in which Maciel, who's a Spanish singer, won the contest. Why? Because there was a huge campaign from the government to show Spain with a different face through culture. So this is the second. We only had another first place in Eurovision in history. This was the first one, and it was a strategy, a specific strategy of the regime. So we have to think about this very precise moment in which the regime was projecting itself deliberately out of their borders through culture. Okay, so that's how can I say, the frame in which this whole story is developed. This second part of the last part of the dictatorship, in which Spain was little by little dissolving the borders. And now, yes, I'm honored to let the floor to my very dear Nadia Hernández.
Thank you, Carlos. Thank you also to Narva Museum and also to the audience for the interest. As you know, this presentation focuses on the attacks carried out against Pablo Picasso, named because he was living in France, in 1971, in several Spanish cities. At the time, these acts of violence were seen as part of a broader wave of attacks on culture that went beyond the Franco time. Now, we can demonstrate that there were specific and coordinated actions. Their violence is indicative of the artist's reception in the late Franco period, when his name had become a symbol of democracy. These attacks triggered an international tribute to Picasso and permit the dissemination of a protest expressed through the language of art. That's the part Carlos, we join Carlos again in this part. To understand these circumstances, it's necessary to go back to 1937, when Picasso responded to the request from the Republican government by creating Guernica for the Spanish pavilion at the Paris International Exhibition. But Picasso also contributed another work to the Republican Pavilion, Dream and Life of Franco, a set of...
This is the same period. Just so that we focus, it's when Real Madrid was winning the Champions League.
I mistake, sorry.
There we go.
Yeah, that's Dream of and Life of Franco, a set of 2 etchings consisting of 9 scenes, which commercialization was intended to generate funds for the Republican government. The seeds were sold together with a surrealist poem titled Fandango of Little Owls. Dream and Life of Franco is a denunciation of war embodied in the figure of General Franco, which is a caricature dominating this sense. Its final images show destruction and death in perfect dialogue with Guernica. Okay. However, Picasso anti-Franco did not stop at the creation for the Spanish pavilion, but also manifested itself in the form of personal engagement. He became a central figure of the culture of Spanish exile. And when he joined the French Communist Party in 1944, this further poisoned the relationship with the Franco regime, obviously. His political circumstance and status as an avant-garde artist led to his censorship in Spain. Picasso visibility in official Spanish culture did not increase until the 50s, as Carlos says. With this maneuver of the Franco regime to increase the international image of Spain. In order to achieve this, it was necessary to depoliticize Picasso, promoting the separation between his artistic work and his political circumstances, disregard the communist man and recognize the Spanish painter. This appropriation of the artist's name also revealed the interest of the Spanish authorities in neutralizing the myth of an artist who embodied the possibility of uniting creative independence with political commitment. The Picasso Museum in Barcelona opened in 1963 and became a focal point for the political and artistic tensions between the artist and the regime. In February 1970, Picasso finally donated more than 900 early works to the museum. Picasso forbade any official inauguration ceremony to express his condemnation for the Burgos trial, where 16 ETA members faced to the death penalty. Also, the conflict surrounding Guernica persisted, as it had become the great emblem of anti-Francoism. Picasso himself had written to the director of MoMA requesting that he not yield the Spanish government demands for the painting returned to Spain. His condition for the works returned to Spain was the restoration of public freedom in the country, the same condition he demanded for himself. Picasso, who has settled in France, died 2 years before Franco and never returned to Spain. In October 1971, Picasso turned 90. This anniversary highlights the polarized reception of the artist. While his name had become a symbol of freedom for some, for others, he personified subversion and came to embody anti-Francoism. On this last opportunity to celebrate, I have to go there. Okay. On this last opportunity to celebrate the artist's life, Spain organized a strict program of events that honored the artist without endorsing the man. The exceptional concentration of Picasso-related activities from October 25 brought an unusual visibility to the painter and gave rise to the far-right groups launching a campaign of attacks against Picasso's name. 3 days. That's the homage in France. Nothing to do. That's a theater show in Barcelona. And these are the first attacks carried out by the guerrilleros of Cristo Rey, a triple action on bookstores in Madrid, whose shops' windows displayed the respective tributes to Picasso. The worst was on November 5, the Theo Gallery in Madrid was violently attacked. The gallery was hosting the exhibition Tribute to Picasso, 24 etchings from the Suite Volar, which were slashed and destroyed with acid by the guerrilleros de Cristo Rey. These attacks publicized denounced Picasso as Marxist, militant communist, unpatriotic, a pimp, homosexual, and pornographer. In November, a series of attacks targeting Picasso took place in Barcelona, carried out by FARC groups as well, allied with the Madrid-based Guerrilleros de Cristo Rey. After attempting an attack on the Picasso Museum, the gallery El Taller de Picasso was destroyed and the Cinc d'Oros bookshop was set on fire. The attacks against Picasso in Madrid and Barcelona constitute a campaign not only against Picasso's name, but also against those who prize the artist. These acts took place when Picasso was experiencing unpredicted media visibility. One may think that this circumstance directed the attackers toward a subversive target, but their intention went beyond mere repression. They were all directed against the very spirit of celebrate Picasso. These were not attacks intended only to destroy the symbol of Picasso, but also those who glorified him, a kind of punishment. The official stance toward these actions sought to downplay the political dimension, presenting them as random acts of vandalism by a few rowdy youth and labeling them deplorable acts of vandalism. These attacks serve as justification for the general security to intensify its repressive control related to Picasso. Thus, the denunciation of the attacks on Picasso was neutralized. The protests were suppressed, and the desire to celebrate the painting was stifled. We can now demonstrate that the motivation behind these attacks went beyond mere repression. Certainly, the publicity surrounding Picasso during the autumn of 1971 led these groups the selection of Picasso as a target, but yet these were not simply opportunistic acts, but rather part of a strategy whose explanation must be sought in the political space where these groups converged, the space led by politician Blas Piñar. This politician of Franco regime this man, very close to Franco, a parallel can be drawn between the speeches of this Blas Piñar and the attacks on his young followers on the name of Picasso. Because Piñar was mistaken. He believed the Teo Gallery exhibition displayed Dream and Lie of Franco. He thought everyone could freely enter the gallery and view those etchings that crudely attacked the dictator. On the contrary, the gallery was presenting the Suite Volare, coincided temporarily with Dream and Lie of Franco, but with a completely different theme, reflecting Picasso's personal concerns and artistic aspiration. Fanatics placed Picasso in the crosshairs of violence. Undoubtedly, the trigger that incited the planning of violent and synchronized actions against the artist was the certain of his grave offense against Franco, insulted through the universal language of art. After the attacks on Picasso, the few acts of redress reflect sadness and frustration. While Europe celebrated, Spain was missing the chance to recognize its most universal painting, even when his legacy has been under attack. Oh, Carlos. I give you. Oh, look. This is.
Sorry?
Okay.
Okay. The answer to this circumstance, it was such an incredible bold move that brought together the possibility of protest throughout the world through art, and it's an unprecedented move. But this Bajauris a gallerist that had the great idea of planning an homage exhibition to Picasso. How do you know an homage exhibition without Picassos that you can show? Well, you just show how much Picasso means for the artistic and cultural world, and not only the cultural world in Spain, but in Europe and in the rest of the world. As you know, Spain has very deep connections with Latin America, which were not shattered during Franco. So I'm going to go very, very quickly, and then I'll let you see the some of the works. But what they basically did was asked the best artists, intellectuals, novelists, poets, philosophers, etc., to send a little work of art in homage to Picasso. And in order to make a format for this work of art, he went with these little tablecloths. These tablecloths were very popularized by another great artist, in this case, Salvador Dali, who was a very ambivalent artist because he didn't have any problem with the Franco regime, quite to the contrary, but he was extremely celebrated outside of Spain. So using this technique and through the postal service so that they could break the actual bureaucracy of the borders, he started sending out these tablecloths with a little note to make an homage to Picasso for the celebration of his 90th anniversary, and most importantly, to show people what Picasso means to the world. The reception was absolutely amazing. If I'm correct, Nadia, it's over 400 tablecloths. Over 400 tablecloths came back from all kinds of artists. And you see here the kind of language, how subtle it is. And this can't be controlled by the regime because it's not specifically anti-Franco. But yet, for example, Equipo Crónica, one of the main avant-garde group of artists, of pop artists that were working in Spain at that moment, came back with this impressive example, which is the famous boxing glove with the name Picasso there, showing that the Picasso and his followers were going to fight back. And then if you continue looking at the range and the power, you see Alexander Cutler, for example, he had exhibited together with Picasso in the famous pavilion of El Guernica, and now he came back with this. And furthermore, we have other examples. For example, Sonia Delaunay, Wilfredo Lam, the great Latin American, great Cuban artist. You see, and Sonia Delaunay on the other side, you see the span of the answer, and how could any pseudo paramilitary terrorist pro-Franco organization answer against such a display? There were so many artists from so many places in the world breaking the walls. Asger John, you see, it's from the Cobra group. It's everyone answering back to this call. Unfortunately, the first show couldn't be presented in Spain because of the situation. It was far too tense. But you see here, Enrico Val, he's presenting the Guernica again. He's coming back with the very work that shattered the relationship between Picasso and the Franco regime. So you see, as much as it was very artistic, it was also very pointy there. Rafael Alberti, who was one of the main exiles, the great poet from Cádiz that had to go to Mexico after the war, and he would come back soon after. And Antonio Saura, these are the main artists, intellectuals, writers of the Spanish, European, and international panorama there, answering back the call. In order to what? In order to scream so loud that you could hear it through the borders. So that was a very meaningful, important move from the artistic and cultural community from all around the world. The last one here, Juan Genovés. Juan Genovés is a key painter of the Spanish transition. And he was there to paint some of the most important canvases of our transition years. Shortly after this situation, 1975, Franco passed away, and Spain, thanks to this whole cultural legacy and this whole exile coming back, could negotiate a transition that was pacific, gave place to the country that we are today. But this is the first moment in which the frontiers, the cultural frontiers of Spain were shattered back and forth during the previous 40 years. So I really hope that we can show this in Estonia soon enough. And I want to thank the Narva Museum, congratulate the Narva Museum for being so bold and so courageous and for doing so many exciting things. And I also want to, of course, big hug there for our dear Maria, the director, and also to my dear colleague Nadia for this amazing research. Thank you so much.
Mhm.